Hey Pokemon Masters, Berkey Toby here, and there are now 807 different species of Pokemon, many of them having different forms or variations. And so with that many creatures, there's got to be a whole bunch of them I love. Especially when they come in so many different type varieties. I mean, there must be my favorite fire type and water type and grass type. And if there's my favorite, there also has to be my least favorite. Last time I did any kind of least favorites list, it was back in 2015, that being my top 10 least favorite. Now since then, I've actually used some of those Pokemon in playthroughs. My relationships to them have changed and evolved. I've come to love some of them. Others of them, not so much. And so while I will talk about my favorite Pokemon of every type in the future, this video is about the worst of the worst. And I said it back in that video in 2015, and I'll say it again now. The key word of today's video is opinion. My disliking of these Pokemon are just my opinion. This magical word here. You might love some of the Pokemon on this list, and that is absolutely fine. You're just gonna let me know why I'm wrong in the comments below. Actually, I'm sure you would have anyway without the prompting. I joke, you're all lovely. Also, this video idea was completely stolen by my friend H-Trainer Liam. He even let me steal the thumbnail, so thank you to him. And if you want to see more lists on worst Pokemon, check out the one on his channel, that's linked below. Some of the Pokemon I have on this list are the same as ones he has on his list, but also some of the Pokemon I have on this list are the same as ones on his favorite Pokemon list, which just, again, goes to show opinions. So, my least favorite Pokemon of each type. Let's start with the grass type. And my least favorite Pokemon from that original list that is still in this video, Servine. Any of you who know me or talk to me on streams know that the Unova starters are not my favorite bunch of starter Pokemon. I'm not a massive fan of any of them. I like Tepig to begin with, and I've grown to love Oshawott over time, but their evolutions certainly don't do a lot for me. And when it comes to the grass type starter, Snivy, I just kind of think the shape is a little bit off, and Superior, I've actually owned one now. Definitely pronouncing the name wrong. Superior, I don't know. The point is, I actually did a run through with a Snivy to see if my love of Servine could change. I'm sorry, it didn't. Servine is, and will remain to this day, to just be a dumb looking Pokemon. And if you really want to know what it is, my problem with this Pokemon is its legs. Just look at the physics of its body. How does it stand up? It looks dumb in the games, it looks dumb in the anime. How does this Pokemon stand? That little frustration is the big reason why I don't like Servine. Like I say, magical word is opinion. That is mine. I don't like this Pokemon because of its legs, and if that's where we're starting this list, well, then the rest of it's gonna be just as fun. Next up is the fire type, and I'm continuing my trend of hating on Generation 5 Pokemon, even though I love some Generation 5 Pokemon, with Pansear. Boy, oh boy, Pansear. I was once at a Comic-Con, and at that Comic-Con I was doing a panel with a couple of other PokeTuber friends, and we were asked if we could remove any Pokemon out of the Pokedex, what would we remove? And I said I couldn't settle on one. I'd do the Pokemon community a favor and just, well, get rid of the whole line of elemental monkeys. Pansage is kind of acceptably okay because of its hairstyle, but Pansear has actually been voted before the least popular Pokemon. And I can sort of see why. There's something very missing about its design. It doesn't look all that creative. It's just a monkey with a funky hairdo. But what's worse is when you compare it to the likes of Infernape, which is an amazing looking Pokemon, Pansear just looks kind of goofy. In fact, while recording this segment, I actually got the wrong name. I'm talking about its pre-evolution. I mean to be talking about the bigger evolution, Simisear. That's how little I care about this Pokemon. I'm talking about the wrong one. Simisear, just a dumb looking Pokemon. I'm sure you've already jumped into the comments and been like, well wait, that's a Simisear. No, I got there eventually. And I would love to have Simipour and Simisage on this list as well, except obviously I thought Servine's a little bit worse. And the same goes for my next Pokemon, the water type. So the water type Pokemon on this list is Luvdisc. Again, it was a Pokemon on that list of my least favorite Pokemon. Nothing has changed. There's been nothing in the last 2 to 3 years that have given me the incentive to use a Luvdisc in a run through. No new forms, there's nothing particularly special about it. It didn't evolve into a Alola. It's clearly the pre-evolution of a Alola. Clearly the pre-evolution, and yet it doesn't evolve into it. And so I love this. There's nothing in the lore that has made me particularly interested, nothing in the show that's made me particularly interested. This Pokemon is just a fish that's shaped like a heart, which by the way, seems very impractical for swimming. Next up is the normal type, and another Generation 3 Pokemon in cast form. What can I say? This Pokemon is really plain, and I tried to like this Pokemon. I mean, it's a man-made Pokemon, which already makes it a very cool topic of interest. Second of all, it has connections somehow to Groudon and Kyogre through the Weather Institute. It has connections to the Landorus and Thundurus line, as in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But still, that's just really talking about how those Pokemon are awesome, and this Pokemon, it's not got a lot going for it. Perhaps if, like, the Porygon line, they released further evolutions to Castform, just something, anything that made it a little bit more interesting, I'd be into it. But Castform, sadly, when you just compare it to other man-made Pokemon, Porygon, Mewtwo, Genesect, it doesn't compare. Next up, the electric type, and Stunfisk. I'm sorry, because I feel like a lot of you are going to be like, Toby, you're picking the really obvious Pokemon that we don't like, and there are some Pokemon in this list that I'm sure are a little less obvious, but what can I say, Stunfisk kind of suffers from the same thing that Love Disc does. It's just this interesting, flatfish, boring thing. It's also ground and electric type, which I understand the basis of the type, but let's face it, it's a fish. If they ever decide to make some Pokemon have 3 types, Stunfisk is one that should get a 3rd type, and it should be water type. And that, it being one of a handful of 3rd type Pokemon, would make the whole dynamic about it really, really interesting. So that or an evolution, there's definitely room for growth, but as it is, Stunfisk leaves a lot to be desired in terms of design, practicality, and just general intrigue. That said, I can respect the fact that it's derpy. Just because it's derpy doesn't mean that's the reason I don't like it. I actually think that's its redeeming quality. Okay, so next up is the psychic type, Delphox. Oi, 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 I remember when Kalos got announced. And sitting in front of me were 3 starter Pokemon, Chespin, Froakie, or Fennekin. And at the time, I didn't think much of Chespin, I still don't really, and I didn't think much of Froakie, which now I absolutely adore, I absolutely love it. But Fennekin, a psychic fox Pokemon. That was clearly the direction the line was going to go. That was interesting to me. It was absolutely adorable, and yet you could kind of see it as being fierce at the same time. It was a new take on a classic riff, which was like the Vulpix line. And then they went and just turned it into a human thing. I don't have a problem with human Pokemon. I like Gardevoir, I like Machamp, I like Alakazam, I like Mr. Mime. This does not work. There's just something about it that makes this Pokemon not look like a Pokemon. It looks like a fantasy creature from some other franchise. The thing is, Ninetales kind of already is Delphox. The origin of Ninetales is that it was a wizard that transformed himself, or a bunch of wizards that transformed themselves into a Ninetales. We already have this spiritual wizardry like fox thing going on in Pokemon, and Delphox is just the same thing over. Except instead of wizards, it's a witch, and instead of looking like a fox, it looks like a person dressed up at a convention. Just, no, I'm sorry Delphox, I got nothing for you. Okay, so, next up, fighting type, also on the human Pokemon, and I feel so bad that I'm fixating on those later generations. I think there's some Generation 1 or 2 Pokemon on this list. No, there's no Generation 1 Pokemon on this list, there's one Generation 2. I'm not a Gen 1er, I mean, I grew up with it. Anyway, Gen 5, fighting, Sork. And I know you're going to say, what, not Sork and Throh? I mean, I'm just choosing one at a time for this list, and Throh is red, and red is, I just think, a cooler color than blue. But yeah, I mean, that is legitimately the only feature about them. The thing is, at least Hitmontop and Hitmonchan, which is their counterparts from Generation 1, at least they look kind of more like creatures. Not enough, mind, but these guys, I mean, what? They're hatched out of the egg, wearing the robes. I know that's not a new concept in Pokemon. Like Machamp wearing pants and a belt, Jinx wearing a dress, and don't get me wrong, those are traits about those Pokemon I don't like either. But these guys are just dudes wearing robes. They're not creatures. They don't really look like animals to me. At least some of the other humanoid Pokemon kind of lean a little bit more into that trait. And so Sork and Throh don't really do it for me, and Sork, because it's blue, I guess you're the loser of the fighting types. So next up, we're on to the rock type, and what a forgettable Pokemon is Binacle. Yeah, I mean, if Brock used this as a rock type master, I'd lose respect for Brock. And that's pretty hard, because who doesn't love Brock? Binacle is just like super forgettable. Where does one catch a Binacle? Is it rock and water type or rock and ice type? Is it evolve form ice type? Does it know? What does it know? This is just, again, a classic Pokemon that I think has nothing going for it. It's just 2 big weird hand things coming out of a rock. Do Barnacles even look like that? Is it based off of Barnacles? What is it? It's like some sea plant thing. Why is it a rock type? I don't know. I'm sure there are reasons. I'm just also sure that I don't care what those reasons are. This Pokemon, I don't care. I don't care. I'm sorry. I want to love all the Pokemon, but this one, I got nothing for it. Next up is a ground type Pokemon, and from the Alola region, Mudspray. Mudsdale is kind of cool. I kind of like it. It has a cool theme about it with the rock, the mud coming up over its hooves. Mudspray, its pre-evolution is just a little plain is all. And it's a shame, because in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the ground type really benefits you when you get to that annoying Togedemaru Alolan trial. And Mudspray is pretty much your only option, and I'm pretty much put off love of Mudspray because of just how boring it looks. I know Ponyta is just also a horse with fire, but at least the fire did something for it. Mudspray is just a donkey. In fact, some of you here in the UK may know that I worked on this book, the Pokemon Annual. This is the 2018 edition, and my name is in the cover on this page, and on this page are a bunch of Alolan Pokemon. This Marowak, it used to be a Mudspray, until I stepped in and said, no, Mudspray is really boring and doesn't represent a lot about Alola. So, to anyone who even remotely cares about that, you're welcome. Next up is a flying type and a Generation 2 Pokemon. Is the earliest generation Pokemon on this list. Liadin. The evolved form of Ledibut, and Ledibut is a really cool Generation 2 Pokemon. A ladybug Pokemon, nice. The difference is between this bug Pokemon and other bug Pokemon is really there's no point much in using it. When it first appears in Johto, there's not really any gyms that it gives you a particular advantage about once you've evolved your Ledibut, and it's kind of outclassed by other early bug Pokemon like Butterfree, which can learn Confusion. Now, if they gave Liadin some kind of evolution, I imagine it would be phenomenal. To make this some kind of bug Pokemon that you could start off your Johto adventure with and then get like really far into the journey and evolve it into its third stage, I imagine there's some really cool design ideas that could happen there. But just personally, in terms of design and my lack of using it, Liadin just really forgettable for me. Liadin was actually the flying type entry. Now we're onto the bug entry. And that is Dwebble. The only bug that I think is worse than Liadin, and again, Dwebble, it was on my top 10 least favorite Pokemon list. It's just a little crab in a rock. And I know you might say, well, hang on, Generation 1 had a crab and or a little gnat which had mushrooms on it. Like, isn't Dwebble just the same kind of thing? Well, yes, but I don't have nostalgia for Dwebble. Like I say, this is an opinionated list, and Dwebble came into my life at a time when, Pokemon was in Generation 5. I was already in my late teens. I don't have the same kind of nostalgic attachment as I do to, like, say, Krabby or Paris. I'm sure if Krabby or Paris were released today, perhaps I'd feel the other way over, but Dwebble, I just think its design is too kind of boring. Also, I'm not particularly fussed about evolving it because Crustle is okay, but again, not the most exciting bug type out there. Especially given that the same generation, we got Leavanny and Scolipede or Solociopede or however you pronounce that one's name. I don't know, those are Pokemon that I just think are really cool, and just by comparison, Crustle and Dwebble don't really hold the title. Next up, the poison type, and I'm gonna go for Skrelp. Dragalge is a kind of slightly overcomplicated design, but I'd still potentially use it. It's a dragon poison type, and that was unique at the time. But the similarities between the Skrelp and the Horsey line are undeniable. Seahorses that evolve into dragons, that kind of thing. So when I'm comparing, when I see this Pokemon, I can't not think of Horsey. And to me, Horsey is the pure lovely version, and Skrelp is the help me, I'm literally poisoning myself on toxins version. I mean, it just looked kind of out of its mind and depressed. Skrelp is just not a very attractive Pokemon to look at, especially when I'm sitting there looking at it with Horsey in mind, So while Skrelp probably not a terrible Pokemon, actually when I consider other poison Pokemon, I just think a lot of them are really, really cool. Skrelp is kind of the worst of a good bunch of Pokemon. That said, there is one other poison type, but it actually comes in the form of a dark type Pokemon, Alolan Muck. There is a Gen 1 Pokemon on this list. Just the new version of it. And this Pokemon was on Ace Trainer Liam's favorite Pokemon of each type list, I believe. But to me, Alolan Muck is just disgusting. And I know you're gonna say, what, hang on, more than regular Muck or Grimer? Yes, more than regular Muck or Grimer. With regular Muck or Grimer, it's a real obvious choice here that we're going for creatively. It is a purple poisonous sludge. Okay, fine. What is Alolan Muck doing? It's all sorts of horrible shades of different colors. And does that really make sense? Because it's picking up litter and trash and it's eating trash. But then doesn't regular Muck do that anyway? I guess I just don't get why this transition, and also I just don't think its color palette is very nice. Muck, I agree, is not the most exciting poison Pokemon, but I think they made it worse with its Alolan variant in terms of design. Now, I'm sure types and battle-wise, I'm sure it's much, much better. I don't know, I'm not a competitive player, but just in terms of my relationship to it, Alolan Muck is not appealing to me. Now, next up is the Ghost type. And what can I say about the Ghost type? Because this is a really good bunch of Pokemon. The Ghost type consistently delivers good, strong, cool designs. And that's really interesting given that, the basis that they're working off is ghosts. It's not a lot you can do with it, and yet they've managed to. That said, I will say Yamask is probably the most boring of them all. Cofagrigus, I think, is really cool. But Yamask just seems to be the most sort of tamed down. I don't think they really knew what they were going for here. Like, it holds its own mask, and that's kind of cool, but I just, in terms of the actual body of Yamask, I don't know, feel like it's missing something, but I'm gonna move on from this because I actually quite like the Ghost types. Next is the Ice type and Avalugg. This Pokemon was also on my top 10 least favorite Pokemon list, and for the same reasons then as it is now. It's just a coffee table. Why did they make that into a Pokemon? Next up, yes, another Generation 1 Pokemon, just its newer version, the Steel type and Alolan Dugtrio. Okay, Alolan Dugtrio, the joke lasts, it lands for 5 seconds. Oh, who's that brunette sitting on the beach? Oh my goodness, it's a Dugtrio. Okay, haha, it was funny. It wasn't even that funny. I don't care for this thing. It just annoys me, I suppose, because when you are Game Freak and there are so many incredible fan-made designs out there, and you're sitting around at your table thinking, okay, what can we do with the Generation 1 Pokemon to really spruce them up? We could have a Water type Arcanine. Whoa, okay. We could give all of the legendary birds a secondary type. What about that? Hi, sorry, idea over there. How about we give Dugtrio hair? I know you're gonna say, oh, hang on, there's a whole basis behind it. I've seen all those videos. I don't care. It's a dumb-looking Pokemon. I don't like it. I'm so sorry, Alolan Dugtrio, but I'm probably never going to use you for any kind of battling at all. So only 2 more types to go. Next up on the list is the Dragon type, and I'm going to go with Fiddis. Dino and Hydreigon are, I guess, respectively either ends of that chain, and neither of them are the most exciting Dragon type Pokemon. I actually think they both look kind of dull, but I guess one is the starting form and one is the completed form, so the awkward in-between is the least exciting of a least exciting bunch of Pokemon. Fiddis, okay, you've got multiple heads, great. Dodrio, Doduo, Dugtrio, Magneton. This has been done before. And Fiddis, I'm sorry, you're just the awkward in-between stage of 2 Pokemon that outclass you. And even there, not very good in terms of design. Again, I'm sure Hydreigon's very good in battling. I wouldn't know, but no, it's not a Pokemon that, it's not an evolutionary line of dragons that look particularly, mystical dragons. They look cool to me. And Fiddis, I just don't care for it. And the final Pokemon on this list, we're going for fairy types, and of course, how could it not be? Very generically, I dislike Aromatisse. Hey, it's a Pokemon that makes me feel uncomfortable. What's it doing with this little leg skirt thing? It's based off a can-can dancer? Why did Game Freak think, yeah, that's an idea, let's make a Pokemon off of that? Again, so many good designs for Fakemon out there on the internet, and this won the thing, this won that, this won out over those. I get that it's got the whole Plague Doctor design, and that element is really cool. So why did they go for a can-can dancer? Stick with the fairy Plague Doctor thing. That was you were onto something there. It's like one employee at Game Freak started making the thing, and then they passed it over to someone else, and they went, cool, now can-can dancer. Because they were just daydreaming. I don't know. Yeah, Aromatisse, not a Pokemon for me. Now, I'm sure I've mentioned some Pokemon on this list that you must love, so you're going to absolutely have to let me know why I am wrong below in the comments, and there will be a video, of course, talking about my favorite Pokemon of each type, and I'm sure many of those you'll absolutely hate, so you have to tell me how I'm wrong then, and of course, check out H-Trainer Liam's videos his are linked in the description section below, and yes, thank you for joining me. Maybe some of these resonate with you, I hope they do. So hi, Pokemon Masters. A special thank you to those you supporting me on Patreon. Thanks to you and the big patron of the month, Elizabeth Collins, we are now moving to double uploads. As of next week, there will be 2 videos a week. Stay tuned for my new mega project about evolution.